Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Geoff Roche, the Director of Tennis here at the University of Redlands, and it's my pleasure to welcome our guest today and former tennis teammate of mine, John Lansville. John is a Bulldog class of 1994 and was a member of very highly successful tennis teams here that finished in the top 5 in the nation. John also earned All-America honors and had just a wonderful career here, both as a student athlete and followed that up with a brief coaching career here as a graduate assistant. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Geoff. I really appreciate it. It's great seeing you and looking forward to today.
Yeah, good seeing you as well. I think we might be setting the record here for long distance. So this is good stuff, and we're glad to have people out there joining us, and looking forward to learning a little bit more about what's going on with you. Let me give a little brief introduction as to what John is currently doing. John is the team lead for professional tennis at the International Tennis Federation, which is based in London. Previously, he was the director of the United States Tennis Association's National Training Center, directing player development operations at the national training centers in both California and New York. He also oversaw the United States Tennis Association's Player Services Department and was the deputy tournament director for the United States Open Junior Championships. John, welcome all the way from London, England.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, it's great having you, and good seeing you. It's been a number of years. Let's go ahead and get kind of right into it and bring us up to speed. Tell us about your life in the UK currently, how the pandemic has impacted you, both personally and professionally.
Well, I live in London in an area called Parsons Green, which is just a few tube stops away from Wimbledon, just down the street from Chelsea Football Club. So if you can get to see the great football action, or as we would call it in America, soccer. I moved here in the end of 2006 and brought the whole family and the 3 dogs, and we're right by all of these parks, so in a great neighborhood. Living in London has been an amazing experience. I enjoyed it immensely. So I started working for the ITF, and my team oversees all the entry-level professional tournaments all over the world. We work with various national associations to stage these events. We have over 1,100 events worldwide. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's caused professional tennis to be on pause, both for our tour as well as the ATP and WTA tour. And the ITF has actually furloughed 50% of its work staff. So there's a lot of people who are currently not working. So I'm doing a lot of working from home. Obviously, we're a smaller team right now, and so just trying to figure out when we're going to be able to restart tennis and get tennis back up and running.
Yeah, really interesting. As you kind of take a look at your career path, tennis has obviously been, very, very good to you. Take us a little bit through, your pathway, how you ended up working for the ITF, and if you can describe maybe just in a little bit greater, detail your current role with the ITF.
Yeah, well, I obviously played 4 years at the University of Redlands. Had a great experience at the U of R. As I was getting close to graduating, Coach Ducey, who was the head coach at the time, he told me that he was going to be getting a graduate assistant for the following year and asked me if I was interested. So I ended up staying on and coaching for 2 years, which was an amazing experience for me. And also, a lot of learning that I was able to do as a coach and as a person. So then I started a position with the Southern California Tennis Association. I oversaw their junior player development programs. And then a couple of years later, I moved on to take over the entire junior tennis programs in Southern California. Did that for 7 years, really enjoyed it. And then the USTA opened up its national training center at the time it was called the Home Depot Center. And it was this amazing tennis facility. So I went over to start managing the facility and did that for a few years. And then I took over the player services department, which is basically everything dealing with players, all of the top players that work with the United States Tennis Association, providing them grants and trips and camps and everything we can do to help to develop players. And then from there, I was given the opportunity to lead the entire USTA Training Center West. And then in 2016, I actually took over the Billie Jean King Center for player development. So I was managing both centers. And then my partner got an amazing promotion. He works for one of the largest international law firms. So he had this great opportunity to move to London. So me being in tennis, it was a tough decision because I'd been working for the USTA for over 20 years at that point. So I decided to pack up and head over to London, and didn't have a job when I first came over. And then probably about 9 months later, I started working for the ITF. And for the ITF, I oversee all of the lower level professional events. And so really working with a lot of tournament directors and national associations, and then with players with regards to their entries and questions that they have about the tour.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And again, tennis has been, so good to you throughout your career. Tell us a little bit about, the best part of your job, and then maybe, conversely, some of the real great challenges. And obviously in this, time, we know there's certainly many of those, but tell us a little bit about both of those.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, in all my positions have, been a lot of great things that I've been able to do during my career. Probably the best part of my current job is just dealing with all of the national associations and putting on all of these events worldwide. Obviously there are challenges with in different countries. Obviously in the US, you get a set mindset of how things are. But then when you start dealing with all of these different countries that have different challenges and different issues, so that's the good part, and it can be also the challenging part. One of the other major challenges that's been working with the ITF is, it's the international sports organization for tennis. It works with all the national governing bodies, but the previous boards didn't spend a lot of money in infrastructure and dealing with systems. And so last year was a major change for the ITF because we implemented a major change to Davis Cup. We did a major change to the entry system for players for entering tournaments. We changed the pro circuits, which is the area that I work in, which is now called the ITF World Tennis Tour, and branding, and we added beach tennis. So for an organization that doesn't make change and hasn't had a lot of change, we've done a lot in the last year. So it's obviously been a test and a challenge, but it's also been fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have a particular great story that you could share with us about any interaction with someone on the pro tour that we may know?
Well, obviously, I wouldn't want to say which players, but with ours is, it's entry level. It's like where the players are first starting to shine. So, someone who like Coco Golf, they start playing these lower level tournaments, and this is where they earn their points to earn opportunities to be professional players. And so all of the players are playing these events, earning ATP and WTA points for a chance to play in the big events. So every player is playing along, the ITF World Tennis Tour because they want that opportunity to play, professional tennis.
Yeah. And that really is a great, kind of segue, to my next question. The professionals, particularly the players at the highest levels, of the game have spoken out with some real strong, opinions here of late. Coaches, players that are, household names, players that are very well known. globally, what do you kind of foresee for the sport of tennis as we move forward? Where do you envision things, 1 year from now, 5 years from now? Can you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, there's obviously there's a lot of media discussion right now about WTA, ATP tours merging, and there's a lot of discussion. Everyone obviously has an opinion about how tennis should be governed. What makes tennis so difficult is that there are so many different governing bodies, and how the governing bodies work together. Tennis has a very unusual structure because of how the professional game evolved. Pro tennis didn't exist until 1968, when it was agreed to that the Grand Slams would suddenly allow professional players to play the Grand Slam tournaments. And so between 68 and 72, the men had like 4 different tours. Everyone was doing their own thing. And so then they created their own tour in 72, which Billie Jean King wanted the women to be a part of that. And Jack Kramer said, no, we're not going to let you be a part of our new ATP tour. So then the following year in 73, Billie Jean started the WTA tour. So these are both player tours created by the players for the very top professionals, so that they would have places to play every week. And that's obviously grown over the years and gotten bigger and bigger. The Grand Slams are the 4 major Grand Slams, which all the players want to play because it's the biggest prize money, are all independent. Those events are all, privately doing their own things. They decide their own rules on how they want to do it. And the ITF has a Grand Slam administrator that kind of tries to get them to be in a line, but really they can do what they want as Grand Slams. And the ITF comes in is that we're the national governing body of tennis. We oversee the rules of tennis. We oversee junior tournaments all around the world, and senior tournaments, and wheelchair tournaments, and beach tournaments. And we provide the lowest level structure for men's and women's tennis. So we're providing $15,000 and $25,000 tournaments at the lowest levels. And then for the women, we also provide, which would be considered a challenger level. For the men, we provide the 60s, 80s, and $100,000 tournaments. So it's obviously we have these competing governing bodies who all have their interests in how things should go. And so because we're at the lowest level of the ITF for professional tournaments, we have to, the amount of points awarded at our tournaments from the ATP and WTA are determined by them. Every time we have to go to them to discuss changes that we want to make, because they're the ones who determine if we can do that or not. So there's a lot of a lot of difficulties in that. Obviously, the majority of the money for professional tennis is coming at the highest levels, at the Grand Slams, and that's why a lot of the players are always talking about the Grand Slams making so much money, and how much the players get at those events, and the top players are getting huge paychecks. Even losing in the first round is, I think, $40,000 or $50,000 depending on which Grand Slam you're playing.
Yeah.
So it's quite good if you're top 100 player, and it's the players who are down below that are the ones who are having problems with making money. And so all of the tournaments that the ITF puts on, there's no money coming from the WTA or ATP. Those events are solely put on by the ITF and the national associations. So it's because the United States wants to provide opportunities for players to play that we are able to have those events, because no one's paying to go watch a $15,000 tournament, and it's expensive. You're paying $15,000 in prize money, but then you have all of these requirements that you have to provide, officials and ball kids and all of the different things, a trainer, all the different things to run the event, and the ITF doesn't receive money from the WTA or the ATP. What the Grand Slams do is they actually give some money they have a Grand Slam development fund, and they create this fund which helps the ITF give grants to countries that are disadvantaged and don't have the same amount of money as like the United States or the UK. So it's so obviously to get everyone on one page is going to be difficult. I mean, there are a lot of synergies that could happen. Like one of the ones I can think of right at the top of my head is like the ATP, the WTA, the ITF. We all have ranking systems. We all have different systems. We all play different companies to create a system to provide entries, and it would be much smarter if we all worked together and had one system that was common for all of the players, and they didn't have to have a whole bunch of different ways to get into the to get into tournaments. But it's going to take a lot of work just to get all of these different governing bodies to work together, just because everyone is so independent from one another.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and when you've done some of the reading here recently and heard some different interviews and that kind of thing, I mean, you really have different tours, and there's a real strong sense of kind of the haves and the have-nots, from a pure financial standpoint. Can you tell us just a little bit further for like a slightly lower ranking professional, and you alluded to kind of that top 100 being the benchmark. What's it like out there for a player ranked outside the top 100, and describe a little bit of the challenge there?
Well, the ITF actually did a study over a number of years, so like where the break-even point was, and for men it's up to about 350 on the men's tour where you can break even, but that's not counting any of your coaching expenses or all of that. And on the women's tour, it's about 250 where you can break even. So a player who's ranked around 150, I just saw something a couple days ago on the Tennis Channel where they were talking about a player who was 150 earned approximately, I think it was like $140,000, and a player who was 200 earned about $105,000, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's also, again, that doesn't count expenses for traveling to those events. It doesn't count coaching. It doesn't count those kind of things. So that's where, tennis can get expensive. And it also depends if you're a younger player who the sponsors see promise, and you're getting money and free strings and grips and shoes and things like that, whereas opposed to someone who is, been on the tour for a long time and they don't expect to break through, is not going to be getting those same kind of benefits.
Yeah, certainly. It's a real tough road, and it's very unique, I think, within the sport, and you have the multiple levels and the varying levels, and I think it'd be real interesting to real quickly kind of get back. Where do you see the tours 5 years from now? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it really comes down to, I saw a tweet actually today from Andy Murray, who was talking about, it's like banging your head on the wall, because he is one of the proponents of combining the tours, because what's the advantage of the combining is, for them, it's selling television as a package for men's and women's events. You're selling sponsorship for men's and women's events. Everything is done as a package, as opposed to the women have to fight for, at this event, and the men have to fight at that event. You know what I mean? So and sometimes they're competing against each other when there's two events in the United States at the same time, but in different markets. And so it really comes down to the men's tour. I think the women would be very happy joining the tour, but obviously the women want equal prize money. They're not going to sell for not having equal prize money at their events. So whereas there's still some men on the tour who don't. So that's why I was referring to the tweet, is because Murray was, frustrated. He said, it's surprising that there's still men who would rather not combine, even though it could bring more money to the tours, because they don't want to have equal prize money to the women. And so that's what it comes down to for the ATP and the WTA. Obviously, the ITF is a different structure just because it works with national associations. It works with all of the governing bodies from every country. And so we already work with them right now, but things could improve with the organizations. And so.
Well, that's great insight, and it is, and I think it's exciting to see what's to come, and potential there for some really dynamic, things to happen at the highest level of professional tennis. So we will see.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. I mean, it's one of those things you can't predict, but because it really comes down to, because the ATP and the WTA are player organizations, they vote, they decide, along with the tournament organizers are also people who vote and who are on the board, and so it's really comes down to them coming to an agreement of what they want to do. So. Yeah. So, I don't have a prediction, but obviously there could be, I mean, this is the most it's ever been talked about and supported by the top, by a Federer, by a Nadal, by Murray, but it's obviously you have your whole group of players that you have to get to support it.
Yeah, and certainly some powerful voices there, no doubt.
Yes, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about the transition to living in London, being a UK, resident. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was my one of my worries, actually, being a California boy, moving to London, where I was just picturing rain all of the time. I was picturing it to be cold all the time, and I was actually pleasantly surprised it doesn't rain in London as much as it's kind of portrayed. I mean, we definitely get rain, but it doesn't downpour like it does in California when it rains. It's usually like a little mist, and there's only even when it rains, it's for short periods of time. So it's definitely, that's been an amazing part. Obviously, I'm loving living here. It's an amazing experience. I love the people, love the culture. There's so much to do. I mean, I love going to the theater. Obviously, Wimbledon's here. I've been going to the US Open for 18 years, and now, Wimbledon is in my backyard, and so it's great to be able to go there all of the time. Obviously not this year because of the pandemic, but future years, hopefully.
Right.
And then just, even the tennis club environment here for adult tennis is amazing. It's very fun. It's very social. You play these team matches for your club. All of the clubs have teams that represent them, and then the clubs buy your dinner for representing them for the team matches. So it's a fun experience living here, and obviously one of my favorite things is traveling to Europe, and so now I can make weekend trips to Spain or a weekend trip to Portugal. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's also affecting all of these things, but hopefully we'll get back to normal soon, and this will be back to normal and enjoy some more traveling.
Yeah, well, that's so great to hear how happy you are, and glad you're doing well. If we can kind of bring it full circle here, tell us, a little bit going back to your days as a student and a student athlete here at Redlands. How do you feel, that time prepared you, for your professional work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, love the University of Redlands. It's a liberal arts education. I think it teaches you to use your analytical skills and to not just accept a solution. And I think one of the things that I learned is always to challenge and try to improve on things, and that's what I learned from my experience. My undergraduate degree was in business administration and political science, and I had a number of amazing professors, Art Svensson and Graham Aughton and Mara Winnick. I mean, all of these individuals were really influential in really teaching me things that would help me, I think, during my career. Obviously, you think about political science and business, it's, you're not thinking that first for tennis, but really a lot of the stuff that I did is based on things that I've learned from their classes. It gave me a very broad spectrum to improve things for the future. That's what one of my goals has always been, is to try to solve problems and to try to improve everything that I've done. When I worked in Southern California for the Tennis Association, I always wanted to improve junior tennis. I wanted to improve the delivery so that we got more players playing. When I took over the training center, I wanted to build it to be one of the best training facilities, and we trained players like Sloane Stevens, who won a Grand Slam title, and we had a number of juniors who won junior Grand Slam titles. So I was always looking to improve, and I would always question things that we were doing and how we can improve. And so I think that's what I got out of my education at the U of R.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, those professors that you mentioned are all still actively teaching, very active in our recruitment, very supportive of the student athlete experience. And so kind of as we segue into that, describe a little bit further your student athlete experience and just some of the values, that you use in your professional life that you garnered in your days as a Bulldog.
Well, obviously, I think, as a student athlete, I loved all of the experiences I had. It was everything I kind of have done in my career has been because of my team involvement. I think that being a part of a tennis team where you're on the team and you're working with a group of guys who were all there for the same mission when we were at the tennis courts, and we all wanted to become a national championship winning team. And we were all highly functioning, highly collaborative team members who were all working for the same goal. And I think getting from those experiences, what we did as a team to try to improve. My freshman year, we were an unranked team, and then to go from an unranked team to a nationally ranked team, the following year, in the top 10 was amazing. And I think that just taught me that, if you really work hard, if you're all dedicated and you all are committed to the team, then it really, it's something that's very successful for me and for the team. And I think how it influences me is it influenced a lot of the way that I manage people and the style, is because it taught me that if you create an environment of a highly successful, highly functioning team, that you can get everyone behind you and working for the common goal, and it just really improve everything, the thing that you do, and I guess secondly, I wasn't the most athletic person. I've never been the most athletic tennis player, but the one thing that I learned, and especially learned from the University of Redlands tennis team, was determination. I was determined to succeed in every match. I never gave up on any point, and I was just, really, as Ducey would say, he would always say, never say die. And that was what I would do, and that's what I've done throughout my career. And so that's always been something that's been, part of me as a student athlete.
Well, yeah, as a teammate of yours, and we had the opportunity to play some doubles together as well. And then at the end of my career, you were also coaching us. I can definitely attest that those were very strong values that you took to the court, each and every day. Hey, John, do you have just a memory or two that really stand out, from your career?
Yeah, I have a lot of great memories at the U of R. Obviously, we had a great team that really did amazing stuff to move from unranked to, we finished 4th in the nation my junior year, and then 5th in the nation my senior year. So it's just great experiences. Probably the match that I remember most is we were playing Santa Cruz, and I was getting killed. I was down 6-1, I think 4-1, and Ducey came over on the changeover, and he's talking to me, and no one else is even close to losing. Most people are in the first set, and I told him, I said, well, I'm not going to be the first one to lose. I said, I don't know how I'm going to stay out and win this, but I'm not going to be the first one to lose.
Yeah.
Long story short, I came back to win that match, and it was all because I was determined not to be the first one to lose the match.
Yeah, well, I would that probably epitomizes your career right there. That story in and of itself, that is so cool. I love it, and those are just great memories, and certainly a big part of your experience. As we kind of wrap up, here, John, you have some words of wisdom that you'd pass on, to young aspiring tennis players. What would be some words of advice you'd like to give there?
Well, I think, obviously every player can hit the ball well. They can all, hit forehands and backhands and do those type of things. But I think that, the most important thing is what you're doing away from the tennis court. It's the extra, weightlifting or running or conditioning. And too often, even, players I see on the tour, they're the same ranking year after year. And then you ask them, what have you done differently? And they're like, well, I'm training harder. I'm like, but have you done anything different? And I think that too often people just think that they're doing the right thing and they're doing the same thing over and over and over. And so what I would always tell people is that, obviously work hard, and because you might be able to beat someone who's not working as hard as you, but really think about how you can do things differently to try to improve something that you maybe didn't do as well before.
That's great stuff, and those are definitely things that we try to implement and inspire in the players here. And yeah, it's just so great to see you, and great to hear about how things are going. We got to get you out for the alumni match here one of these years. I realize that it's a little bit tougher now.
Yes,
definitely tougher. But take it to the bank. It's pretty much always that last Saturday, that last weekend in January. We'd certainly love to have you come over, and it'd be great to see you. But thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you jumping on with us, giving us some insight, and sharing with us a little bit about what you're up to and how things are going.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me, Geoff. It's great seeing you.
Awesome. Great seeing you. Thank you, everybody out there. And we appreciate you jumping on with us. And for now, we'll say goodbye and go Bulldogs.